speak on non-agenda items. Since there's nobody here, I think that takes care of that. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Ms. Dugo, second by Mr. Noble. All in favor, all
Aye.
opposed. Fiscal year 26 budget. Ms. McHugh.
Do we have someone?
You scared her away.
Budget approved.
I guess this meeting ended really, really quick when the star of the show is
Just
gone.
walked on stage, just like that.
That's right. Good evening, everyone. Are we ready for me?
Yes.
All right. Tonight, we are going to do our preliminary review of the fiscal year 26 budget. I would ask that you do not page ahead because it might be a little scary for you, but don't worry, we're good. So going to go through the slides that we have. We do have, if there are any questions or you need any follow-up information, we're happy to provide that information. But we're going to start with some follow-up on the CIPs. Just a couple of items to note. In the 303 fund, if you recall, we talked about a $340,000 budget adjustment that was probably needed just based on the timing of receipt of impact fees. We finally think that we're at a point with Blossom Trail, with some of the other developments that are coming to the city, that we're at that point where we're going to start seeing those impact fees. So, but because we are not going to get them in time, we are going to need to do a budget adjustment, and you will see that as at a subsequent meeting, but wanted to note that. And also in the 304 fund, in the Public Works Building Rehab account, there was initially $60,000 that we reviewed with you. We are upping that by $15,000. I know it's a minimal number, but it is something different from what you looked at. We want to make sure that we are providing you that information. That additional $15,000 is for the Martin Avenue building, for some termite remediation that we need to do to that building, so that's why we're adding the additional $15,000. Also, a couple of things to note: the appropriations that Representative Gerwig went over this evening, the $450,000 for youth programs and the $550,000 for Swain Boulevard, they are not included in the CIPs just yet. We will be adding those, but they are not in the numbers that you're going to be seeing here tonight. So just wanted to make sure we're noting that. But okay, let's start with our first slide. We're looking at proposed positions for fiscal year 26. First off, we're going to start with the assistant city manager position. I think that everyone knows it's probably time that we have a conversation about that position. We have a lot on the plate. We are continuing to grow as a city. We are anticipating that the workload is only going to increase, so we are looking to budget this position at 6 months. But it is something that I've had conversations with some of you over the past several years about, you know, when it's going to be looked at, and I was trying to be conservative and be able to manage what I can manage myself, but I feel like there are some things that I just can't manage myself, so I think it's something that it needs to be looked at, so we wanted to be able to include that for the 6 months in the fiscal year 26 budget. Additionally, we are looking at a digital media specialist for the Public Information Office. As the way that we're growing as a city with the rollout of our branding and all the different initiatives that we're going to be doing as a city, we are seeing that there are costs that we're spending in other areas with some outsourcing of things, that if we brought the digital media specialist in-house, we will be able to achieve some savings by doing that. So we are making the recommendation for that position. The third position is with Development and Neighborhood Services. That is the landscape inspector reviewer. Interestingly, that was a position that we had on the books years ago. For whatever reason, it was eliminated. But as we're looking at new development in the city, and we're looking at some of the current state of some of the landscaping within the city, we want to be able to address some of those things, and we just have not addressed those things over the years. So those are things that we are going to be delicate about how we roll them out, but it is something that needs to be addressed. So we are looking to add that position as well. And lastly, with fire rescue, we are looking at 3 paramedic firefighter positions. That comes from the last collective bargaining agreement, working towards the 3 on the truck. So we were adding 3 a year, so that's what that is. And then we're also looking at a fire inspector position. That would really be added in the area of fire prevention. It will allow us and give us the ability to really be able to focus on a lot of fire prevention and still be able to manage the plan review and the inspections. That is something that we really have not paid a lot of attention to over the years. So it's really just rounding out that area. For full disclosure also, I just wanted to make you aware that PBSO did recommend a community policing officer. It was something where I did counter. They asked for a 3% increase. I countered with a 1% increase plus the addition of the officer to kind of keep us at a wash. That was something that wasn't approved at the higher levels, so I am working with Captain Turner on some different things, particularly as it relates to the speed cameras. There is something we'll probably have to bring forward to you at some point down the road with the review of those citations and how we're going to offset that, so that'll be something later, but I did want to just put out there that that request was made, but it is not included in the proposed budget for fiscal year 26. I will keep going unless you have questions.
Any questions?
Yes.
Thank you. Can you just, on the fire rescue, I just want to understand the fully burdened number. It's inclusive of all of the benefits and everything that,
Correct. Fully burdened numbers inclusive of everything. So it is retirement, it is health insurance, you know, we're estimating that they're going to have the coverage, all of those things, it's fully burdened with everything.
including the contract.
Correct. Yes, correct. Any other questions? Okay, the next slide is our law enforcement services agreement. We are at the 12th addendum, so our contract actually expires January 31st of 2026. We are working with our city attorney and the PBSO attorney to begin negotiations on a new contract very soon. But as you're looking at the 12th addendum, again, it's a 3% increase. Remember, we don't do the full 12 months because we started February 1st, so we are under the old increase for so many months, and then you can see there it's 4 months and 8 months. So 4 months is under the previous contract, then the 8 months is the 3% over 2025 for the new contract. So we're looking at a total amount of $11,617,423. Increase from fiscal year 25 to 26 is $302,000. Okay. Next slide, we're going to go to the general fund. First slide that we're going to look at there is projections. So we're going to look at our fiscal year 25 projections and where we're thinking that we're going to end the current fiscal year. A couple of things to note on there is intergovernmental revenues. Our budget manager did advise that we are lowering some of those line items just based on what we're seeing from the state. The state revenue sharing is down as well as the half penny. So we are reducing the intergovernmental revenues, our projections for that. And then additionally, the charges for services. We're seeing that our transport revenue is a little down, but we're not sure if that's seasonal or not. So, but we are projecting that one to be a little lower as well. As far as expenditures and reserves, we don't anticipate that the departments are going to use 100% of what they get as their budgets, as they normally don't each year. So we're looking at ending the year with net revenue over expenditures at about $1 million. We think that's a pretty conservative number where we're going to end the year $1 million to the good. We were a little higher than that, but just based on, we want to be conservative with some of those revenues that we're looking at. So we're still confident that the number shouldn't probably fall below $1 million that we're going to end the fiscal year 25 year at. Next slide. All right, here we go. Next slide. Before we talk about the expenditures over revenue of $8.8 million, let's talk about some of the things that we have here in the categories for revenue and expenditures. First off, we haven't received all of our estimates from the state. We have received the half cent and the municipal revenue sharing. Additionally, you will see that the fines and forfeitures, interest income contributions, we're really just lowering those numbers based on trends. So you'll see that there's a reduction in those revenues based on trends. Depending on where the market is, you know, the interest income could be better than that, but we're just being conservative again with our projections. Our director of finance does a really good job of moving our money around. We have our money invested in a lot of different areas, and we do very well with our interest income, but we just want to be a little conservative there. Going down to expenditures. Operating expenditures, personnel services, and actually I didn't bring this up under, my apologies, under new positions. We do have a 4% cost of living. We have a 4% cost of living in the budget for employees. Additionally, we have 5%, which is what's in the bargaining agreement. And there is also a merit increase that if they're meeting expectations, they could get a potential 2.5% on their anniversary date. There's also the ability potentially for exceeding expectations, greatly exceeding expectations, but there is criteria that goes along with those ratings, and the numbers are not high with those that fall in within those categories. So those are our personnel expenses. We also have 6% in the budget for health insurance. We are going to go out to the market for health insurance. We are going to bid that again this year to see what kind of numbers we can get. So we are going to take a look there, potentially get a better number, but right now we have 6% in there. For our operating budget, it is a 13.7% increase. The difference is the $793,000, but when you look at the amount of infrastructure, programming, and operating and commodities that this city is purchasing, $793,000 is a pretty low number, and it's a pretty low increase for operating what we're doing in all areas and maintaining the level of service that we have, and then also increasing our level of service in some areas. Solid waste, that increase is based on the franchise agreement, and so then finally, let's go down to the interfund transfer. That 10.650 number, if you recall, every year when we look at what our reserve is and our balance is, that number has been increasing because we have been saving the monies to do things like the Emergency Operations Center and some of the other projects that we have. So what this is this is a transfer from the general fund to be able to fund those projects. So when you look at the 10.650, $9 million, again, as we talked about it when you did award the bid, we are doing phased budgeting for that project, understanding it's not going to be done all in one short period of time. It's going to span over a couple of fiscal years. So we're doing phased budgeting for that project. As you recall, it is a $30 million project. But we have $9 million going to the EOC, $450,000 going to youth programs, and $1.2 million going into the 304 fund. The 304 fund is the tough one that we have for capital projects, where that one always seems to be short and we have to do our interfund transfer. 303, 301 with the impact fees, those are usually covered, but 304 fund, reconstruction and maintenance, that one is one that we usually have to do transfers from the general fund, but that makes up the 10.650. So if you have any questions, let's just go to the next one before you have any questions. When you back out the $9 million that's coming from the reserve from the general fund, we're actually to the good at 174,486 revenue over expenditures. So really what we're showing you is straight revenues, straight expenditures. And the expenditure is coming from the reserves for the EOC, but when you back that out, we're at 174,486 to the good. So while I know it's a little bit of a scary number when you look at it overall, now granted, long-term, we still have to look at how we're going to increase revenues as a city. We'll talk a little bit about that in some of the later slides, but that's where we are right now. So looking at that one time or that move of the funds from the general fund, if you take out the EOC, we're at the 174,486. Next slide, page 10. This is our 5-year projections when you're looking at our 5-year projections, and you still see that our expenditures are exceeding our revenues. A couple of things I want to point out with projections. We are projecting low at 5% for the out years in ad valorem. I think our increase this year was about 7%. We were at, the numbers from the property appraiser's office was at 7%. A couple of things to note though. We are looking at the Astoria Towns project, Blossom Hill, the CNC Legacy Plaza, the Garden Square project, Murphy's Gas, Santa Catalina, and Soma Medical. So we have some pretty big projects coming down the pike. We do think that that is going to impact what our numbers are going forward for the next couple of years, but we are being conservative and putting 5% in there as our are looking at the out years for ad valorem. So we have the 5% in there. Again, we're being conservative on the state revenues. We haven't received all of our state revenues, but we also know that there is a lot of scrutiny and things going on at the state level, and we want to just be conservative because we don't know how things are going to change in the money that we're getting from the state. When you're looking down at expenditures across the board on the out years, we're looking at 5% for personnel services, 3% for PBSO in the out years, and then 3.5% for the solid waste collection contract for the out years as well. So when you look down at fiscal year 25, again, we're projecting that we're going to end the year to the good. That $10.650 million in 2026 that is coming from the general fund, that gives us the $8.8 million that you're seeing there. And then in out years, we do have the interfund transfer of $1 million in the out years from 27 through 30. You are seeing, the numbers where the expenses exceed the revenues. But again, we're working through those things from a revenue perspective. We're looking at a lot of different opportunities, whether it's economic development or just different initiatives that we can do here at the city to be able to increase our revenue. But we are being conservative from the revenue perspective. I can't say that enough. I can't stress that enough. Next slide. We're looking at our 5-year projection for our general fund. Again, when you look at fiscal year 25, the unassigned reserve is currently at 56%. And that was done by design with the monies that we have been holding in the general fund, knowing that we were going to have some bigger projects, some bigger expenditures moving forward here in future years. So with that fiscal year 26, the 8.8 million net change in reserve, we are at about 32%. Remember, the unassigned reserve based on Council Policy 18 has to be at 25%. So that is the policy of the council. So fiscal year 26, we're at about 32%. Fiscal year 27, we drop down to about 27%. And then at fiscal year 28, we are going to dip a little bit below the 25%. But again, we're looking at some different things from a revenue perspective, and we are being conservative where we are. As we go through our fiscal years, we'll be able to track better where things are going. We'll be able to see where things are coming from the state. But, we've been deliberate in our attempt to be able to save those dollars for the big projects. And I think we will be deliberate from the revenue side as well with how we're managing the revenue. The other thing that I just wanted to point out with this as well is I did bring up the Department of Government Efficiency at the state. I think one of the things that we should try and keep in mind is that the timing is probably good to spend down some of these funds within that unassigned reserve, because I do think that the scrutiny from the state on local governments, whether it's from property tax perspective or just what the reserves look like, that scrutiny is going to be there. So I think that the timing is really good for us to reduce some of these numbers for these projects, so that that's really not going to put us on anyone's radar. Next slide is setting the tentative millage rate, as we have to do every year before the end of July, setting the tentative millage rate. This is just showing the operating millage rates and the summary of the effect and what that looks like. Looking at fiscal year 25, that $3.3 billion, that is the current year property values from the property appraiser's office. That's the 7%. That we did get from the property appraiser's office, so that is a good number. That's a final number from them. At the 6.3 millage rate, we're looking at property tax revenue of $20.4 million with the 7% percentage change, and then the increase in property tax revenues at about $1.4 million. We also have to show you the rollback. So, and really the rollback is the break-even point. So if we would do the 2025 rollback rate at the 3.375 billion, that takes the millage rate down to a 5.8636. Reducing that percentage change is a negative 7.44. Property tax revenue is $18.9 million. It's a 0% change, $158, but that gets us as close as we can as rollback. As you know, with the setting of the millage rate, when we set the millage rate, we can go lower, the council can go lower before the budget is adopted, but you cannot go higher. So in setting that millage rate, that's where we are, and that has to be set before the end of the fiscal year. Before the end of July, my apologies. The next slide, yes?
I'm sorry about that, I have a question. In looking at these numbers, a few meetings ago, I had brought up looking at our elderly that are under that 37,500 per year threshold. I think currently we offer that 5,000 homestead exemption. And I had mentioned if we could look into raising that to 25,000, which is more in line with most of the municipalities around us. Is that figured into this?
I don't know if that is figured into this, but the impact is minimal. I will send an email tomorrow with that impact. Our Director of Finance did work out that number. I will send what that impact is so that we have that, and then we can get some direction from the council. My apologies on that additional exemption for seniors. Okay. I will add that. So then looking at the next slide, it's really just showing the history of the millage rates. The millage rate went from 6.4 to 6.3 from 22 to 23, and it has remained at 6.3 with the millage. And then the last slide is just the proposed budget meetings. First meeting September 3rd, second meeting September the 17th. Any questions?
Question. Seeing none, well, I have not slept for the last 3 or 4 days because Ms. McHugh and I have been having some very interesting conversations related to the needs of our city and the opportunities that we have, as well as being realistic about some of the financial issues that we've got. I think a couple meetings ago I mentioned to you that we created a Central County Consortium, and the whole focus of that group was to talk about exactly the kind of things that Kelly Smallridge was talking about tonight, about what do we do to encourage development and growth. And when the presentation was done by our consultants a few months ago, when they said that more people leave this city than come in the city, and more people drive through this city than stay in the city, it really was a pretty clear message that that's an important part of what we've got to address. And I also know that when you look at some of the opportunities we have, making these decisions in the economic environment we're in right now is kind of scary. But I looked at some of the statistics on what it's cost us on some of our projects, and just to give you a quick idea, the Chickasaw Road project originally was budgeted or thought to be $1.5 million. It actually cost us $3.5 million. The new youth center program originally projected to be $7 million. It's costing us at least $10 million. The Gladiator Lake project started at 1.2 and ended up at 2.9 million. And I could go through several others. So I think that when I look at these kinds of issues, if there are some projects we need to consider, and I hate to see us be in a position that we budget for something, we think we got the money, and then all of a sudden the price is doubled or tripled or quadrupled in looking at these. And some of the things we've identified and talked about over the last few years, and you know, and during the short time that I've been here, is the park master plan. And after some discussion, it looks like the possible cost of that could be about $3 million to do the capital plan for our recreation, parks, and development there. Land acquisition is an interesting one. I'm not sure that we are in a position that we want to say we should be going into the real estate business, buying up property, but I think there should be a conversation this council ought to have about the opportunity that we have to possibly purchase some sites in this city. No land is being invented in the state of Florida or any place else, and certainly not in our area. We have the church that Brandon talked about tonight. That's a large piece of property. It's way overvalued right now. We have the Haitian church off of 10th Avenue, some other lots that are vacant. We have the pickleball site that's up for sale. All of those have potential for us, not to be property owners, but for us to look at doing one of several things. The first one would be to buy them and have that, the minute we buy that property, that becomes an asset to the city, and those properties are eventually going to increase in value. We have the opportunity to use that property for the development of some of our parks needs. We have the potential to use that, part of that property. I could envision us doing a downtown Green Acres along 10th Avenue where the Haitian church is and some of those other lots, and using those properties as ways to encourage business. And we don't have to do all of that business. We could actually, we have the opportunity, and I think the gentleman that talked representing the bank on the public-private partnership opportunities. I'm not real familiar with that, but I am familiar with public-private partnerships. Give us the opportunity to lease that land and have a regular, steady revenue source that would come into this city that would help us offset some of these shortfalls. And I think one of the ways that we should do is I would like to ask the council to authorize our city manager and staff to, over the next couple months, to bring to us a comprehensive plan on how we take the things that we talked about tonight, match it in with our budget, and look at what opportunities we have to actually start engaging and getting these projects completed, with the idea that in 3 to 5 years, we can have this done and possibly end up making money off of some of this. We have some other revenue sources. We'll get some income from the traffic cameras. We have other opportunities that are out there that we don't know. And if we commit to something like this, if we commit to the kind of development that's being encouraged by the Central County Consortium of Cities, and some of the efforts that Kelly and the Business Development Board, we might be able to bring in donors. We can get grant money that I think would help offset this. It may mean that we have to talk about actually borrowing some money, and we also have reserves that would help us protect ourselves, that we would not have to be raising taxes to pay that money in the case of an emergency one year where we needed to look at it. It's a big ask. It's scary, and that's why I wasn't sleeping, because it was really difficult to even want to say this, because the side of me that's very conservative and not wanting to spend money is a difficult issue to ask, but it also is one that if we want to leave our mark on this city and not have people say, why didn't you do these things? Why did you pay 3 times the amount of money for a youth center than you should have? We have a fire station that we have the opportunity to get some money for on that, and we're ready to go with these projects. We could get them done. The Safe Streets presentation that was done, from my understanding, talking with Andrea about this, some of those projects that are on that list of things to do are things that our Public Works Department could actually do those without it costing us a tremendous amount of money. And then there would be some of the others that we would have that would cost us some funding. But it's something that I would like to ask the council to support, at least taking a real serious look at all of this, see what we have, and then if we can do this, let's do it, get it done, and be able to show this is a way that we're committed to this county for that kind of economic development that we need in our city. So with that, I'm open to any comments and
Mayor.
consensus from the council. Mr. Tharp, I'll start with you.
There's the old adage, you gotta spend money to make money. And I'd love to see, and I know Andrea and staff are gonna come back with some great ideas, so I'm all for this.
Mr. Noble.
I'm here 27 years, it will be 28 years in March. Every time this has come up, I have been a staunch supporter of not borrowing money, and that is why all our facilities are fully paid for. So before you get me on the side of easy money, you'll have an opponent. But I certainly will look at everything. I will always think that if there are opportunities, real opportunities, they should be taken care of, but I go and walk on the lane of being very cautious with our money. My comment.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Dugo?
Mayor, I cannot agree with you more. This has been on my mind. I've mentioned it before. Yes, I totally agree. We need to buy the land. That's an asset for our city. Absolutely.
Ms. Diaz?
Thank you, Mayor. I am in 100% agreement that if we have the opportunity to acquire land, we should. Many times with the public-private partnerships, land is what gets bartered. There are many places around us. I know Ms. Smallridge mentioned the Boca Raton project. Many times what happens is that's what the municipality gives. They give the land, and then in return, they get a city hall, or they get an EOC, or they get a new fire station. So there are many ways that when we have property, we can leverage that, whether it's like you said, Mayor, through a lease, or whether it's offering that land in exchange for building something else that we need for our community. I am 100% in agreement of land acquisition, and I'm 100% in agreement of exploring any possible public-private partnerships we can.
Yes.
All right. I think the good thing is, I think we have met our challenge, and now we've handed it to staff to make it happen. And
I guess it's a good thing we
And
budgeted
Steph?
for an additional assistant city manager.
that's right.
Well, there's always a loan in Guardians.
You know, I've watched this, and one of the things, and I mentioned to our finance director tonight, we invest our money with Florida Palm. When I got originally started with Florida Palm, the investment trust, the assets of that trust were about $1 billion. And I heard from one of their board members about 2 weeks ago that that trust has now grown to $9 billion. And one of the opportunities, and I haven't talked to Terry about this, is that they have changed that trust to the point that overnight investments are a big part of what's been successful with them. If we borrowed money, we could be putting that money when it's not being used
Yep.
into that trust and making interest on it, so that we would be getting that free money back to some degree. And the overnight, I'm not an expert on all of this, but I do think that that this opportunity for us to look and look outside the box may give the city an opportunity that we may never have again. So with that, any comments from the council? If not, Ms. McHugh, anything else?
The only couple things I will add is that, you know, understanding that there are a lot of exciting things happening, you know, we're getting ready to release our new brand, embarking on our Parks Master Plan, having our safety action plan where we're looking at various corridors throughout the city to be able to make some changes in those areas, looking at density and height, economic development. There's a lot of things happening in the city, a lot of exciting things happening, but that doesn't mean that we're not still going to pursue dollars wherever we can pursue dollars. I have had a lot of conversations with our lobbyist about the fire station at John I. Leonard and being creative on whether we go after education dollars, we go after emergency management dollars, whatever we can do, and he knows that that's our priority. The same thing with Safe Streets for All. Our match is only 20% with the same Safe Streets for All. So if we're looking at 20%, and depending on the roads that we're looking at, if they're county roads, we can partner with Palm Beach County and be able to try and do something collaboratively with them where we can do a joint application or do something like that. Additionally, we can get on the 3 to 5 year plan for the TPA if we're going to map that out, and we're going to do that through the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. I'm going to engage our Director of Public Works. We're going to set up a meeting to be able to do a 3 to 5 year plan so that we have monies coming in to do these projects, and it's not just something where we're looking at our general fund and saying we need the general fund to try and manage these projects. So wherever there's money to be found, we're going to try and go after those dollars to find them and be able to get these projects done. But we are at a crossroads as a city, and I think that we're doing a lot of really exciting things. So if there is a time to look at some of these things, the timing is probably now to look at them.
Any other comments from the council and anything?
Quick question, do we need to set the millage today?
Yes, a vote on where, yes, we're going with the millage, so we can send that to the property appraiser's office.
I'd like to make a motion to set the millage at 6.3,
Second?
We have a
What
motion,
number?
6.3,
same as it is
same
now.
as it is this year.
The same as,
Yeah.
the same? Yeah, okay.
Right. Any discussions? If not, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. With that, we stand adjourned. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank
Wonderful
you.
meeting.
Thank you very much. Thank you
Wonderful,
very much.
wonderful meeting.
Now I can sleep tonight.
I guess we have lots of things to talk about.